From the terrifying darkness of the inland roads, we journey to the wild, windswept coasts of Scotland's Northern Isles. In Orkney and Shetland, the sea is not just a boundary, it is a way of life, a constant, powerful presence that gives and takes in equal measure. Here, where the grey waves crash against dramatic cliffs, the line between the human and the natural world blurs, giving rise to the legend of the Selkies, the gentle and mysterious seal folk. The core belief is simple and magical. Seals possess the ability to shed their skins and walk on land in the form of breathtakingly beautiful humans. To do this, they must place their precious seal skin in a safe place, for without it, they are trapped, unable to ever return to their true home beneath the waves. This single motif, the magical skin, is the heart of the most powerful and enduring Selkie legends, which almost always revolve around the theme of the captive bride. The classic Orkney tale, The Goodman o' Wasteness, paints a vivid picture. A lonely farmer, walking the shore at midsummer, comes across a group of Selkie women dancing on a secluded beach, their glistening skins lying on the rocks nearby. Enchanted, he steals one of the skins and hides it away. When the Selkies are ready to leave, they all reclaim their skins and dive back into the sea. All except for one, who searches desperately for her lost property. The farmer approaches her, and because he holds her skin, she is bound to him. He takes her as his wife. She is a good wife and a loving mother to their children, but she is forever marked by a profound, quiet sadness, her eyes always gazing out at the endless expanse of the sea. She belongs to the land, but her soul belongs to the water. Years pass. Then one day, one of her children, playing in the rafters of the barn, discovers an old, sea-worn skin hidden beneath some thatch. Recognizing it from their mother's sad stories, they bring it to her. The moment she touches it, her wild, true nature floods back into her. With a tearful, loving farewell to her children, she runs to the shore, dons her skin, and plunges into the waves, leaving her human life behind forever. These tales are infused with a deep melancholy that speaks volumes about the communities that told them. They are stories about profound loss, about consent and captivity, and about the deep, instinctual pull of one's true home and true nature. The children of these unions are often said to have physical markers of their dual heritage, like webbed fingers and toes, a tender, physical symbol of their belonging to two worlds, but being fully at home in neither. The stories of the Selkies are not just fairy tales. They are complex psychological dramas played out against the backdrop of a powerful and untamable sea, a constant reminder that some things and some people can be loved, but never truly owned. We journey now to the Orkney Islands, a windswept archipelago off the northern coast of Scotland, where the sea is not just a force of nature, but a source of profound and ancient dread. From the depths of these cold, turbulent waters, Orcadian folklore says a creature of pure, unadulterated horror would sometimes emerge, a being so foul and malevolent that its name was only spoken in hushed, fearful whispers. This is the Nuckelavee, arguably the most terrifying demon in all of Scottish folklore. It is a creature of nightmare, made flesh, a grotesque fusion of horse and rider into a single, monstrous entity. The rider's torso, immensely powerful, grows directly from the horse's back, as if they were one being from birth. This rider has no legs, but possesses arms so unnaturally long that its knuckles can drag along the ground as it moves, its fingers ending in vicious claws. The horse's head is a thing of horror, enormous and gaping, with a single, massive eye that burns with a malevolent red flame, and a cavernous mouth that emits a toxic, steamy breath. Some accounts also speak of a human head attached to the rider's torso, its mouth wide and whale-like. But the most ghastly and unforgettable detail, the one that sets the Nuckelavee apart, is its complete lack of skin. The entire creature is a raw, flayed anatomy, its powerful red muscles and thick yellow veins exposed to the air, twitching and pulsing with a hideous, unnatural vitality. It is a being turned inside out, a walking, breathing monument to pain and malice. To see it was to risk losing one's mind. The Nuckelavee was a sea demon, but unlike many marine spirits, its terror was not confined to the water. It could pursue its victims onto land with a relentless, terrifying speed, its hoofbeats echoing across the moors. It was a personification of blight in its purest form. Its breath, known as the mortarsheen, was a lethal plague that could wilt crops in the field, cause livestock to sicken and die, and spread devastating epidemics throughout the islands. It was blamed for droughts, for the mysterious sea fogs that rolled in and ruined the harvest, and for any period of communal sickness. Its rage was said to be particularly stirred by the burning of seaweed to create kelp, a common island industry. This has led to a fascinating ecological interpretation that the Nuckelavee was a violent spirit of the sea, lashing out at humans for polluting its domain with smoke and fire. In the older island lore, there was a single benevolent force that could offer respite from the demon's reign. The Mither of the Sea, a powerful and ancient sea spirit, was said to act as its warden, keeping the Nuckelavee confined to the ocean depths during the gentle summer months. But as autumn turned to winter and the storms began to rage, her power would wane, and the Nuckelavee would be unleashed to once again stalk the land. For any mortal unlucky enough to cross its path, there was only one sanctuary, one element. The skinless demon could not bear to touch, and that was fresh, running water. To cross a stream or the outflow of a loch was to find immediate safety. The creature would halt at the bank, shrieking in impotent fury. This single weakness offers a glimmer of hope in the otherwise pitch-black terror of the Nuckelavee, a creature that remains one of folklore's most potent and disturbing embodiments of plague, pollution, and the merciless power of the sea. We now move inland, away from the coast and into the damp, treacherous landscapes of bogs, fens, and marshes. Here, in the deepening twilight, a strange and unsettling phenomenon has been reported for centuries. A small, ethereal light, a flickering flame of blue or pale fire, is seen hovering just above the ground. It seems to dance and bob in the air, moving with a strange and deliberate purpose. In England, it was called jack-o'-lantern. In Scotland, it might be a hinky-punk. Across the Celtic world and beyond, it was known as the will-o'-the-wisp. Folklore provided a chilling and supernatural explanation for these lights. They were universally believed to be one of two things: either mischievous fairies carrying lanterns, or the tormented souls of the dead. In either case, their intent was almost always malevolent. The lights were tricksters, deliberately trying to lure weary travelers off the known, safe path. They would appear as a welcoming beacon in the distance, promising the light of a cottage or the warmth of an inn. But as the traveler pursued the light, it would recede, drawing them ever deeper into the dangerous, waterlogged terrain of the bog. The journey would end in disaster, with the traveler lost, exhausted, and sinking into the cold, dark water, the phantom light dancing mockingly over their final resting place. In some traditions, the lights had another purpose. They were said to hover over the location of buried treasure, playing on human greed. Anyone foolish enough to try and dig for the treasure under the flickering light would find themselves trapped by the treacherous ground, another victim of the bog. This folklore, while supernatural, served an intensely practical purpose. Bogs are genuinely dangerous landscapes, especially after dark. The ground is unstable, with deep, hidden pools of water concealed beneath a thin crust of vegetation. A mysterious, moving light, a natural phenomenon we now understand better, would have been a terrifying and deadly distraction. The stories of the will-o'-the-wisp encoded a vital piece of survival knowledge in the form of a memorable and chilling cautionary tale. Never trust a strange light in the marsh. Never stray from the known path. Of course, science now offers a different, though no less fascinating, explanation. Since the 19th century, it has been understood that these lights are likely the product of the spontaneous ignition of marsh gases, primarily methane and phosphine, which are released by decaying organic matter. This process, known as chemiluminescence, can create brief, ghostly flickers of cold fire. What is so compelling is that this scientific framework does not cancel out the folklore. The two explanations coexist, representing two different worldviews trying to make sense of the same mysterious event. The will-o'-the-wisp is a perfect intersection of the natural and the supernatural, a place where a scientific process and a folk belief meet in a single, flickering light, reminding us that for our ancestors, the landscape was alive with intention, with mystery, and with a very real and present danger. From the low-lying bogs, we climb into the misty, heather-covered highlands of Scotland, a landscape of rugged moors and desolate cliffs that has inspired countless tales. This is the hunting ground of a truly formidable otherworldly creature, the Cooshie, the great fairy hound. This is no mortal dog, but a being of the otherworld, a harbinger of death as large as a young bull, with a shaggy coat of dark, otherworldly green fur, paws the size of a man's hand, and a long tail that is often described as being coiled or braided. It was said to move with a ghostly silence, a spectral presence stalking the wild, lonely places, serving the fairy folk as a guardian, a hunter, and a messenger of death. The Cooshie was an omen to be deeply feared. Its appearance was a sign that a soul was about to be summoned to the otherworld. It was a psychopomp, a spirit guide for the dead, but its method of announcing its arrival was a terrifying, ritualistic countdown. For the most part, the great hound moved in an unnerving silence. But on occasion, it would stop, raise its massive head, and let out a series of 3, and only 3, thunderous barks. These were not the sounds of a normal animal. The barks were described as being so loud and carrying that they could be heard for miles across the land, even by sailors on their ships far out at sea. For any person unfortunate enough to be out in the wilds and hear that first bark, it was a desperate race against time. The folklore is terrifyingly specific. You had to reach a place of safety, a home or a settlement, before the third and final bark faded. To be caught out in the open after the third bark was to be struck dead with pure, unadulterated terror, your soul forfeit to the fairy host. This ritual countdown created an intense dramatic tension, a life or death race that enforced the boundary between the wild, supernatural world of the moor and the safe, protected world of human community. The dog's green pelt marked it as a creature of the scythe, not of the mortal world, and its grim task tied it to a wider Gaelic anxiety, about being caught alone and unprotected, far from the safety of kin and hearth. The Kushi is a distinct figure within a broader tradition of spectral hounds found throughout the British Isles, like the black dogs of English lore or the Welsh San Annan, the hounds of the otherworld. But with its specific green colouring and its ritualized deadly barks, the Scottish fairy hound stands alone. It is not a mindless monster, but a being with a solemn and terrible function, a servant of the otherworld and a hunter of souls. A powerful and unforgettable symbol of the wild, untamable, and sometimes lethal spirit of the Scottish Highlands. Our journey takes us back to Ireland, to the lush landscapes of County Waterford, and to a tale that feels chillingly modern in its tragic themes of love, betrayal, and revenge. This is the story of the Darrig Dow, a name that translates to the red blood sucker, a figure who has become known as Ireland's own vampire. The legend, as it is most often told today, centers on a beautiful young woman who lived many centuries ago near what is now known as Strongbow's Tree. She was deeply in love with a local peasant boy, and they had pledged their love to each other. But her father was a greedy and ambitious man. Ignoring his daughter's pleas, he forced her into an arranged marriage with a wealthy but notoriously cruel local chieftain in exchange for a handsome sum of land and gold. Her life became a prison of misery. Her husband was a brutal tyrant who was both jealous of her beauty and resentful of her unconcealed sorrow. He locked her away in a tower, isolating her from the world and from any source of joy. Deprived of her true love and subjected to constant cruelty, she refused to eat, wasting away until she eventually died of a broken heart. She was buried in a small, lonely churchyard. But her suffering had been too great, and her thirst for vengeance was too powerful to be contained by the grave. On the 1-year anniversary of her death, she rose from the earth, transformed into a revenant, a walking corpse driven by a hunger for the life and blood that had been stolen from her. Her first acts of vengeance were against the men who had destroyed her life. She sought out her cruel husband and her greedy father and drained them of their blood until they were lifeless husks. But her thirst was not quenched. From that night on, she would rise from her grave to use the incredible beauty that was her curse in life as her weapon in death, luring any young man who crossed her path to a lonely place before feeding on their lifeblood. The legend holds that the only way to keep her restless spirit in the ground is to pile a heavy cairn of stones upon her grave each year and to leave flowers as a sign of remembrance, an offering to appease the tormented soul that lies beneath. While this narrative is incredibly popular today, a staple of ghost tours and popular histories, its claim to be an ancient, continuous tradition is debated by folklorists. Firm, early attestations of the Darrig Dow story are difficult to find, and some argue that the tale as we know it is a more modern synthesis, perhaps influenced by the wider vampire craze of the 19th century. It is important to contrast her story with that of Abhartach, another Irish revenant whose tale is better documented in older sources. Abhartach was a tyrannical dwarf king who, after being slain, rose from his grave to demand bowls of blood from his terrified subjects. Though both are now framed as vampires, the Darrig Dow story, with its themes of tragic love and female vengeance, is the one that has truly gripped the modern imagination, proving that folklore is not a static relic, but a living tradition that continues to evolve, creating new monsters to reflect timeless sorrows. We now turn from the individual spirits that haunt the lonely corners of the landscape to the very gods and primeval beings who were said to have battled for dominion over the land itself. To understand the heart of Irish mythology, one must first understand the epic, world-shaping conflict between two mighty races, the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Fomorians. The Tuatha Dé Danann, whose name means the people of the goddess Danu, were a divine and luminous people. They were not creators of the world,